Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today I have a very simple, straightforward video for you. I never make content like this. It's my first time, and if you like this type of style, let me know in the comment section down below. But today I just want to talk to my community, and I hope that's okay. There will be a little bit of editing here and there, but not a lot, so feel free to minimize the video, listen to it in the background, but definitely at some point get engaged in the comment section down below because I'm honestly interested in hearing your feedback on today's topic. Now, before we get started, yes, I know my beard is getting long. I'm growing it out on purpose. I promise eventually it will look a lot better. And if it doesn't, I'll shave it, but I see your comments, okay? All right, look, today I want to talk about frame generation, DLSS, Unreal Engine 5, and all that crap because right now I'm a little bit concerned for the future of PC gaming as it pertains to all of these technologies, and I'll explain why. So Borderlands 4 recently came out and it runs like garbage on console and on PC. I did a full benchmarking video on it with a 3070 and a 5090, and basically the only way to have any type of real playable experience with minimal crashes is to use both DLSS and frame generation. Now, some gamers are totally okay with this. They're totally fine. They don't care. They're just like, look, I don't care about all the tech stuff. I don't care about all the tech jargon. I just want to play my game, man. And you know what? I get that. I do, because that used to be me as well. I totally get it, okay? But with that being said, there are plenty of gamers out there who do not share that mentality, and they do care if they have to use DLSS and frame generation in order to have a playable experience. And there are reasons behind that. But look, to make matters severely worse here is the fact that gamers have voiced their issues on X, and then Randy Pitchford, who is like the chief guy over there at Gearbox, is getting involved, and he won't stop tweeting. He won't stop posting. He's responding to people. He's doubling down on things, and basically he's saying things like, you know, your hardware is old, so maybe upgrade it. Or he's saying, you know, you're just gonna have to get over DLSS and or frame generation. And he's talking about, you know, the optimization guide that they put out, which, oh my goodness, this is like the worst thing I've ever seen in terms of having to figure out what settings you should run. Spoiler alert, you pretty much always need to turn on DLSS and frame generation, and you also need to have a premium PC, right? And then on top of all of that, he went as far as to say, if you don't like the game, just refund it over there on Steam. And you know what, Randy? Don't worry, I did refund it and I got my full money back, so thank you, Steam, for that. But here's the thing, it got so bad that even Gamers Nexus got involved. Randy had posted, I'm sorry you don't like being told to use DLSS, but that is the way. And then GN responded with, do you want to go on camera and talk about this belief? We can fly out to you. And then when Randy did not respond to that, GN doubled down and said, we were being serious. You are replying to a lot of angry comments and talking about how troubled the commenters are, but have not replied to our actual offer to discuss these beliefs. Could do next week, as I need time to play through the game first. Okay, as you can see, it is definitely a big deal here because it's not just a couple of smaller YouTubers complaining about it or a couple of gamers here and there complaining about it. No, it's actually caught the attention of Gamers Nexus. So it's definitely a big deal. But with that being said, I don't see anything coming from this. I don't see Randy ever responding to Gamers Nexus and taking him up on the offer, because why would he? He doesn't have anything to gain from that, right? So at the end of the day, there is this belief by developers that, hey, it's a tool, you should use it. DLSS is there, so turn it on. Frame generation is there, so, you know, turn it on. But here's the reason why that gamers are resistant to that. Okay, let's go back to before we had DLSS and FSR and frame generation and all that stuff. So back in the day, I know I sound like an old man now, but back in the day, PC gamers basically had two ways of getting more performance out of a game. Either turn down the settings or upgrade your hardware, like, you know, buy a new CPU or a new GPU or both. And that was it. Simple, straightforward. Hey, I paid more money, I upgraded the hardware, boom, I have more performance now because I paid the price, right? However, then came along DLSS, and the first introduction of DLSS was really bad, and then it got a little bit better but still not good enough, and then progressively over time it has gotten better and better, and now today it's a juggernaut. I'm not gonna lie, it is, because if you ask most gamers today, most of them are using DLSS and most of them are okay with it, and from what I've seen are saying that it's better than native in their experience in the games that they're playing. So today DLSS is definitely a juggernaut, and it's something that I think more and more gamers are looking to in a favorable fashion as opposed to a negative fashion. However, you still have that group of gamers that prefer native performance and don't want to rely on DLSS. And I'll tell you why that is, because DLSS muddies the waters. When you use DLSS, you're not actually able to fully evaluate the performance of the GPU itself because it now has AI upscaling to help it out. You're also causing confusion anytime you're talking to your friends about, your settings and your performance. If you say, hey, I'm running this game at 4K and I'm getting 120 FPS, well, if you're using DLSS set to the quality preset, then you're not actually running at native 4K. You're running at native 1440p upscaled to 4K. And I know the argument. If it runs well, if it looks good, if you can't tell the difference, who gives a crap? Turn it on. It's a tool you paid for whenever you bought the card, so use it, right? But the problem with all of this is that it sets a dirty precedent for developers and publishers. As more and more gamers start to use DLSS and they become okay with it and they stop complaining about using it, developers see that and then start to make it more and more of a requirement, or at least being okay with it being a requirement because they're using an engine like Unreal 5, which is very heavy and constantly produces games that don't run well. So the whole argument, just use DLSS, just turn it on, that becomes a new standard. And again, very similar to Borderlands, you can make the argument, well, if it's a one-off issue, if that's the only thing, then sure, fine, whatever. But the real problem here is that it doesn't seem to stop. It seems like, hey, here's DLSS, it's a feature you don't want, it's crappy early on, few games support it, so just start to learn to like it, and over time it'll get better. And that's what happened, and that's where we are today. And now they're doing it again with frame generation. Frame generation came in on the 40 series cards. It was heavily criticized and vastly rejected by most gamers out there. And not a lot of games supported it, and there were issues with it. It added latency to the game, and in some games it looked okay, and in other games it added additional artifacting. And then for the next generation, the 50 series cards, Nvidia decided, hey, that thing you didn't like, that you didn't want, that nobody asked for, we're gonna double down on it and give you even more. Now we have multi-frame generation going up to X3 and X4 modes, and that's what we have. And now, again, developers are saying, hey, here's this thing you didn't want that, didn't really work too well the first time, that nobody asked for, that not a lot of games supported. Yeah, here you go. Here's more of that. And then if gamers start to accept frame generation or multi-frame generation as a new standard, then they're just going to introduce some other AI crap or some other AI tool. And then it starts to become this ever revolving cycle of, well, I got to turn this on and I got to turn that on and I need to change this setting here. And it starts to make everything a little bit more complicated. And in addition to all of that, it starts to turn people off. I know it turns me off. Why would I even consider upgrading my hardware? I'm currently using a 5090. Asus sent it to me and I did a full review on it, but prior to this, I had a 4090 that I paid for myself with my own money. I didn't go buy a 4090 just to use frame generation. I went and bought the 4090 because it was a beast. It was the fastest GPU you could buy, and I was able to just power through the majority of games that I was able to play or buy or whatever. And I very rarely ever had to actually resort to using DLSS, and I never use frame generation unless I was testing something or unless I just wanted to see how it ran, or in the occasion I would play a game that was built in Unreal Engine 4 or 5 at the time and it ran like crap, and the only way to get a decent experience was to use frame generation. And that was a situation where I blamed it on the game. Okay, the developer should have done more. I'll use frame generation fine this one time. But that was it. In the majority of games, the 4090 was so powerful, I could just plow through whatever game I was playing, and I didn't need DLSS. I didn't need frame generation. And at worst, I would only use DLSS set to quality in a couple of games. But now with a 5090, it seems like every game that's coming out is in Unreal Engine 5, it runs like crap, and you need both DLSS and frame generation in order to have a decent experience. And if this trend continues, why would I ever consider upgrading my 5090 to something like a 6090? If the 6070 Ti is going to have all the same features as the 6090, then I could just buy the 6070 Ti, save all of that money, and have all the same features and the exact same experience, because that's basically where we're at. With Borderlands 4, a 5070 Ti has access to all the same DLSS features, it has access to all the same frame generation features, and yet it costs a lot less money. And finally, I want to close out by talking about this. I did mention this in my Borderlands 4 benchmarking video, but I will say it again here. The biggest issue with all of this is that when Nvidia introduces these technologies, they make it exclusive to that generation's hardware. So frame generation was exclusive to the 40 series cards, and now multi-frame generation is exclusive to the 50 series cards, and you can bet your bottom dollar that when the 60 series cards or the 6000 series cards, whatever, comes out from Nvidia, they will have some type of AI feature that will only be available on those cards. And now what that means is that when games come out that take advantage of those exclusive features, that means your hardware that you've been using for the last year or two or whatever simply cannot run those games. And now that forces you in to an upgrade that you were not planning on doing. And it all just kind of feels so arbitrary, and it all just kind of feels forced instead of just natural. It's not like, hey, game graphics have gotten just so good that, you know, your little card from 8 years ago can't run it anymore, which, you know, that used to be the legitimate way of doing things. You buy a card, you hold on to it, and then eventually graphics, you know, just get so good, you just go buy a new card, and that's fine. That makes sense. But that's not what's happening here. Now what's happening is developers are basically saying, you know, we built a new game in a really bad engine, and we did not take the time to test it or optimize it. We don't even care. Just, you know, use these new features from Nvidia and you'll be totally fine. Except for the fact that, you know, your 3070 doesn't have access to frame generation, and it doesn't have access to multi-frame generation. Well, what are you going to do at that point? Run at 30 FPS or not play the game or just go buy an upgrade? You could look into something like lossless scaling, but do you see what I'm saying here? Like, that's the trend they're starting to set. As more and more of these features come out and they become exclusive to the new series of cards, and developers use them and they use it in place of game optimization, that now puts gamers in a position where, okay, this GPU should last me a little bit longer, but because I don't have this one feature that's exclusive to the new cards, I now have to go upgrade if I want to play the game, or I just miss out on playing the game. Anyway, look, that's it for this video. I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below. Maybe you're more open to DLSS and frame generation and all that stuff than I am. And if you are, be respectful and let me know why. Don't call me names and all that crap, because it's not beneficial to anybody. Just talk to me like a human in the comment section. Let me know why you do prefer these technologies, and if you're against them, also let me know why, because you probably have a few points that I didn't even consider for this video, and I would be like, you know what, you're right, I agree 100%, well said, heart and like the comment, right? Anyway, that's all I got for today's video. If you liked it, please do me a favor, hit that like button, because it goes a long way in helping me out. If you're new, please get subscribed, and until next time, E-Rock out.